What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Coming up today, we're going to look at the Celtic squad in more detail, following on for last week's video where we ranked the players in three categories: keep, bin or need more. We're going to look at the makeup of the squad in the depth in more detail and come up with a transfer window shortlist that Brendan Rodgers will be looking at, the positions he needs to strengthen, how many players he needs to bring in each position. And what will happen is we'll end up with a list of 6 or 7 positions, and then the club will bring in 3 or 4 players. Something like that anyway. But we're going to come up with a short list, and you can give me your thoughts in the comments below. As always, we'll go through each area of the pitch, look at the options we've got, look at where we need strengthened, and I'll come up with the positions and the number of players I think we need to bring in each position. So let's take a look at the full Celtic first team squad as it currently stands. Now, there's a few caveats, of course. The likes of Bosun Lawwell, Daniel Kelly, those boys aren't included here. They're still on the Celtic website under the B team, so I haven't included those guys. The other thing is, any players that you see in red here are expected to leave the club this summer or not in the manager's plans based on how much game time they got last season. So obviously top of the list is the goalkeeping situation. Right now we've got Scott Bain and Benjamin Siegrist. Joe Hart is retired. That leaves us 2 first team goalkeepers. I know we've got likes of Toby and Josh Clark as well for the B team, who could maybe take that third slot, but I expect Benjamin Siegrist to leave this summer. He was obviously heavily linked to a move in January, has had next to no game time since he arrived at Celtic, so I think he will move on. That leaves us needing 2 first team goalkeepers. Links today, last night and over the last couple of weeks with Peter van Daal Jensen from Sparta Prague. The reports suggest £8 million is what Sparta Prague are looking for. Quite a unique scenario because he only just joined them permanently off the back of a loan deal in March, and we're looking to try and sign him. We'll keep tabs on that, and if there's any concrete news about a bid being accepted, we'll look at Van Daal Jensen in more detail. But we do need a first team goalkeeper. I think we need one with a profile maybe a little bit younger than Joe Hart. I know we've been like with Martin Dubravka. I think that to constantly go back to 35, 36-year-old goalkeepers and try and get a year or two out of them, and just have to constantly rinse and repeat and replace them every 2 seasons, isn't a great way forward. You could also say that if we go for somebody 26, 27, 28, and there's a couple of really good seasons, there's a chance he could move on and we'll be in that position that we are often in with the player trading model, where we constantly have to replace players and try and find the next sort of gem, the next hidden gem that we can maybe make a profit off of, given that's how the club operates. But there's no doubt we need a new first choice goalkeeper, but if Siegrist leaves, we need 2 goalkeepers. So to start this shortlist, I'm going to go with 2 goalkeepers. Top of the list, the main priority is getting that new Celtic number 1 in. I'd like to see, obviously, he's got to be a brilliant shot stopper. He's got to command his area well. But I would like to see him be a wee bit more assured on the ball. I think so often in domestic matches for us, we've got so much possession. And I think building the game out for the back, we could be a lot cleaner. And I think a lot of that onus does fall on the goalkeeper at times. If a team decides to come and press us a wee bit, we've got opportunities to go out and beat their press and try and find Callum McGregor. But it might be a risky pass, and it relies on the goalkeeper really trusting his ability to play a nice sharp pass in between. Could be 2 opposition strikers, or a striker and an attacking midfielder who have came to press the centre halves, and if Callum McGregor's open, there's a ball on him. Things like that happen all the time, and that wasn't the strongest area of Joe Hart's game. I'm sure he would admit that himself. So along with the traditional things you're looking for your goalkeeper, to command his area, to be brave, to stop shots, I'd like us to find someone who is just a wee bit more comfortable on the ball. So there you go. We'll start with the 2 goalkeepers. Heading up this summer transfer window shortlist, and we'll move on to the back 4. Right back, I think, is sorted. I don't see any incomings or outgoings there. We know Ali Johnson is the first choice. We've got Ralston there as a backup. I don't see either of the 2 of them leaving, and I don't see any real need to strengthen in that area. We played the entirety of last season with those 2, so I think that'll be absolutely fine. Moving on to centre half, I think that's a problematic area for us. Cameron Carter-Vickers is obviously the main man, the number 1, the go-to player that you rely on for stability. and confidence back there, but also through the whole team. He's massive. Scales played the majority of last season, but then after that you've got Welsh, Nawrocki, Lagerbielke, Kobayashi. I've got Lagerbielke and Kobayashi in red because Lagerbielke nearly left the club in January. Clearly not part of Brendan Rodgers' plans as it stands. Kobayashi the same. Was linked with maybe I think a loan move back to Japan in the winter. It didn't materialise. He is training in the pre-season first team squad just now, but again hasn't had a look in. Did get 45 minutes at Ayr the other night though at left back, but I don't think there's any way that he's going to form part of Brendan Rodgers' first team plans for this season. So they two are basically as good as gone. And Welsh, who I said is we'll probably keep him as a squad player, but I think he didn't perform even to his highest level last season, and I know a lot of people have got doubts around him. And then you come to Nawrocki, who I like, and I think there might be something there, but he's been plagued by injuries since he arrived at the club. Even at Ayr on Friday, he starts the first half and he needs to come off after 15 minutes with another injury. I didn't actually see what happened at the time at the game. It didn't look like there was too much in it. He just he pulled up and then he had to come off. You would like your centre-half to be robust. I don't know if it's another muscle injury, but if he's ever going to hold down a place for Celtic at the heart of the defence, he needs to be fit, he needs to be robust, and it doesn't seem to be happening for him. So the jury's out on Nawrocki as well. So you've only really got Carter Vickers and Scales that you can hang your hat on there, and I've got my reservations about Scales, as you all know. So I think there's problems at centre-half, but for now, I'm actually not going to put a centre-half on the shortlist because it's got to be one in, one out. We can't bring in another centre-half. We've got 6 first-team centre-halves there. We can't bring in another one until we sell somebody, whether that be Lagerbielke, whether that be Kobayashi. I think both of those could conceivably go. And then, yes, definitely you'd be looking for us to add another centre-half. But for now, until one of them goes, I think it's got to be one out, one in centre-halves, because there's no point in having 7, 8 first-team centre-halves. And as Brendan Rodgers tells you, told us last season time and time again, tells you to death, it's quality over quantity that we need. We've got to get some of those fringe players out and then try and bring in somebody of real quality in behind them. Left back is a big area that we need to improve. Alexandro Bernabé is on loan until the end of this calendar year, so he won't return to Celtic in any capacity until the end of December. So he's not considered part of the first team right now, being out on loan. But we've got one left back, it's Greg Taylor. I know a lot of you have got reservations and would like us to go and improve in that position in terms of getting someone in better than Taylor to be first choice. Regardless of where he stand on that, we need another left back. So that's next on the shortlist. It's absolutely imperative that we bring a left back in. Now that is something that we've not heard very much on. We've been linked with, obviously, Idah. We've been linked with Bernardo. There's been more news on those today, and we'll come to them when we talk about midfield and up front. But links with a lot of goalkeepers, but no real tentative, even early tentative links with a left back yet. So I hope that's one the club are working away on in the background, because it's absolutely essential that we bring in a left back this summer. Okay, moving on to midfield. We've got a lot of midfield players, and if we start with that sort of deeper position, the way I've got it set up here, we've got McGregor, Iwata, Kwon, McCarthy and Shaw. Again, Shaw I didn't have in my video last week because I'd basically consider him a B-team player. I know he's been out on loan at Wigan. He's in the first team category on the website, so I've added him in, but there's no danger that he's part of the first team plans. He's marked in red. James McCarthy, talked about him last week. Who knows where we stand on James McCarthy, so he's got no part in the first team plans this season. Kwon, I don't see it either. I know that he had a decent wee spell at St Mirren, maybe before he got injured. I just don't see it. I don't see him ever holding down a place at Celtic, so I've marked him red as well. I don't know whether he might go out on loan again this summer. We'd have to wait and see, but I don't consider him to be at the front of Brendan Rodgers' thoughts this season at all. So we've got McGregor, Iwata, we've got Matt O'Reilly, Odin Thiago Home and Rio Hatate. We've obviously lost Bernardo, who's gone back to Benfica, and we'll come to that in a minute. Matt O'Reilly is not marked in red, by the way, because I am clinging on to all hope that he might somehow be here at the end of the transfer window. I know that is very hopeful indeed, and the likelihood is that he'll leave. And if he does leave, then the centre midfield area becomes a lot more problematic, because if you look at that, if you ignore the sort of deeper position there where you've got McGregor and Iwata, you think Iwata may or may not be adequate cover for McGregor. And I mentioned last week we need to think about how we cover for Callum McGregor and maybe reduce the burden on him, given that maybe the minutes he's played over the years are starting to catch up with him in terms of injuries, as we saw towards the end of last season. We might need another player in there. I know that Brendan Rodgers talks a lot about power. Bosun Lawa is a B team player. I've not included him here. He's got a chance to impress Brendan Rodgers through the pre-season, and just see if he can even be considered a first team player by the time we come to the end of the summer. But he's not included here. That may be something that we look at in terms of trying to get a different profile of player in there. But just looking at those more advanced midfield positions, O'Reilly and Hatate are all we've got, really. We lost Turnbull in January. As I say, Bernardo's gone back. Odin Thiago home. Again, I said I'd like to see him go out on loan this season to get more game time. Got quality but needs a real physical development. So definitely getting added to this shortlist is one central midfield player. Now that could be Paulo Bernardo. News sort of developing all the time from Portugal about the status of that deal. £4 million is the rumoured fee. Last night again it was said that we were getting closer. There's this debate about wages as well. It does look like it might get done, Paulo Bernardo, on a permanent basis, and if it does, we'll be back with you to talk about that in more detail. I would like to see him return. I think £4 million is a good level. I don't think I'd have been comfortable paying 6 or above for him given his output last season, but I think he did enough to justify a permanent deal, and I think given the numbers we've got in midfield, he can definitely be an asset for us. So we need to get Bernardo in, and if we lose O'Reilly, we need another one on top of that, because we need to think about how we replace Matt O'Reilly. I don't think Bernardo, I know that people think, well, Bernardo's your replacement for O'Reilly. I don't think they're similar profile at all. Matt O'Reilly, a lot more numbers in terms of assists and goals and carries a bigger threat going forward. Bernardo hasn't really shown us that side. I know he got maybe 3 or 4 goals last season, but I don't think he's as natural an attacker as O'Reilly is. So I think that's something we've got to look at. So on the short list is one central midfield player, possibly 2, if and when O'Reilly departs. And then we come to the wide areas. The wide areas were a huge problem for us last season. We know that. Nicholas Kuhn came in January. I've got him on the right-hand side here along with Forrest and Yang. On the left-hand side, I've got Idah, Palma and Mikey Johnston. Johnston covered this last week as well. I think it's just the right time for him to part ways. Best for his career, best for Celtic. If he can go and find somewhere else on a permanent basis, you could see that he did really well at West Brom. I think he could go on and really kick on his career if moving to another club. I just think the weight of expectation, pressure on him at Celtic, given how his career at the club's gone so far, has just got too much. So he's in red. Don't consider him part of Brendan Rodgers' first team plans this season. And strikers, we've got Kyogo, and O is marked orange because that Genk offer came in a few weeks back. It's kind of died a death. I think it was rejected at £3.5 million. They haven't come back in as of yet. But I think it's clear that he's one that the club may be willing to let go. And we'll come to the pursuit of Adam Idah in a moment. So in the wide areas, I think we need to add something. But again, we've got to lose somebody first, I would say. I think if Johnston goes, you've obviously got Palma and Maeda, who are predominantly left wingers, and then Kuhn and Forrest. Yang, I've not marked him red because I don't really expect him to go, but I wouldn't lose a wink of sleep if he did go. I'd like to see him moved on, whether it be in loan. I don't expect it to be permanently, only 12 months after arriving, but I hope that he's not front and centre of Brendan Rodgers' first team plans this season, because he had a lot of opportunities last season and really failed to deliver. So we need more out of Kuhn, as we covered last week. We got a lot out of James Forrest towards the end of the season, but you're back in that position where you wonder how often Brendan Rodgers will go to him to start games early on in the season. He did say that he should have done it earlier last campaign, and he was right. James Forrest still the best winger at the club in terms of his technical ability, his ability to deal with playing for Celtic, play under the pressure, but also as a goal threat. He's head and shoulders above everybody else that we've got in that area of the pitch. But again, just at this age, how often can you rely on him? He's not going to play 50, 60 games, 90 minutes. So is it a right winger? Is it a left winger? I would like to see us add someone, maybe somebody can play both sides. I know that we've seen Idah and Palma on the right-hand side from time to time. We haven't seen Kuhn so much on the left, but I think we need to add a wide player. And to be honest, obviously if Johnson is to leave, having 3 each side is a lot, but I think if Johnson's to go, then that sort of frees up the space to bring somebody in. But again, you're looking for us to bring somebody in with a bit of an X factor, somebody that can make a difference, somebody that when he gets in one-on-one positions out wide can deliver as a constant threat. I think too often last season, despite the fact that we weren't playing well at times, the wingers were getting in one-on-one positions against fullbacks and they weren't delivering. There was no cross at the end of it. They weren't threatening enough. They weren't direct enough. Again, that's something James Forrest really brought to the team late in the season. He was so direct. He was getting on the ball. He was positive. He was driving at defenders. He was making things happen. I think too often, likes of Kuhn, Yang, Palma, they can sometimes take the easy option and turn back inside, be easy to read. Yang, for example, turns it over way too often. Kuhn just lets you down in those dangerous areas too often. We've got to get much better in the wide areas. I think that really hampered Kyogo's game last season as well. I would like to see us add a wide player, so I'm going to add that to the shortlist as well. Again, it might be waiting on one to depart first, and I know we've not really been linked strongly with any wingers, but I think we need to add a wide player of real quality. Right, up front, we've got Kyogo, we've got O. I've covered O already. Adam Idah reported last night, again, loosely reported that he's informed Norwich that he wants to leave the club and he wants to join Celtic on a permanent basis. I'm sure the club are working on that. There does seem to be enough sort of reports and rumours around that it could be close, a permanent deal for Idah. I think we definitely need him in. So on the shortlist, I would add striker. Again, if O leaves, Idah may well be the replacement. And I know that the back end of last season we had Kyogo, we had Idah and we had O, but O basically never played a minute in that run-in. So we only really worked with Kyogo and Idah. So that may well be enough to just have Kyogo and Idah there. You can let me know in the comments, by the way, if you think, regardless if Idah comes in, if you think we need to add another striker on top of that. I just think, given the way Celtic operate and given how difficult it is to keep 3 strikers happy when you only play one, I think Brendan Rodgers will be happy for Idah to be the third in line to play through the middle if we end up in a drastic situation with injuries or suspensions at any given time. Idah can deputise for a really short-term period through the middle of the pitch. But I think Idah is essential, given the impact he had in the team last season. I don't want to jinx it, but I do feel like there is a deal there to be done. I think when there's a desire on both our side, on the club side, and from the player, I don't think Norwich will stand in his way, provided Celtic can just get to the right fee. That Norwich find it too good to turn down. The Norwich manager might want to look at him in pre-season, but I don't think he's by any means the first choice there. And I think if we can get to the right price, Norwich will be happy to let him go. And I think, as I say, Kyogo and Idah, and then we'll see what happens with O. 3 strikers is probably a bit too many, given the fact that we only ever play one through the middle. I'd be happy with Kyogo and Idah, and that would complete the shortlist. So there you go, 2 goalkeepers, a left back, a centre midfield player, or 2, a wide player, and 1 striker. So you can let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think we need more players than that? Do you think we need less? Do you think we'll get them? How many do you feel like we'll get this season? Do you disagree in any positions? I know centre-half will be a big talking point. You can let me know your own thoughts in the comments below. And as we move through this week and next, if there's any news on that Bernardo deal, Adam Idah, a goalkeeper, if there's any progress on those fronts, we'll be back with you to talk about it. Thank you for watching. Like the video, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you again very soon. Thank you.